101 years since the 19th Amendment officially became part of the Constitution, giving women the right to vote. Well, Wyoming became the first state to give women that vote back in 1869, but it was 51 years before the suffrage movement pushed Congress to adopt that 19th Amendment, on this day in 1920. Even now, all those years later, disparities remain. Women still struggle against systemic discrimination, lack of opportunity in the workforce, lack of pay equity, many other barriers to true equality and equity in society. Dr. Kerry Mitchell-Brown is an equity strategist and cultural architect, really an expert in the field of equality across the board. And she joins me now, and I'm really thrilled to be able to celebrate and commemorate National Day of Women's Equality with you, Dr. Kerry. Again, it's important to know this is a national celebration and commemoration. And goodness knows we see what's going on in Afghanistan. This is not something that the world is celebrating, but we have to note it here in our state.
Absolutely. It's not a world celebration, but it is something that we recognize here. And from a historical perspective, continuing to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment and the removal of gender walls against voting is very, very important. And there still are disparities. Very interesting, Michaela, you talked about how long it took to pass the 51 years, but it's not lost on me that while we celebrate this milestone, we must also acknowledge that Black women did not receive the right to vote alongside white women. It took 45 years and the work of many Black suffragists for the passing of the Voting Rights Act before before Black women got that right, as well. And even now, we still face an uphill battle on protecting those very same rights with the national voting right tax, with the passage of voter suppression laws in states all across the U.S. And Congress, could mitigate this with federal voting right legislation by passing the John Lewis Voting Rights and For the People Act.
And this is a reminder that the struggle continues. I mean, this is, look, we look at today, this day that has been made to commemorate, right, this anniversary and acknowledge where we've come from, but it's also a vivid reminder of how far there is still to go. These are issues that, it's not our grandmother's day, right?
No.
But again, the fight still continues, especially when you look at the generations coming up behind us. We want better for them.
We absolutely do want better. And if we don't get better, we actually get those walls that were dismantled, actually reestablished for people of color, for elderly, for Blacks, and really preventing citizens from exercising their fundamental right to cast their ballot and participate in our democracy process. And so there's still a lot of work to do for women and for the rest of the folks to protect their right to vote at the ballot. And then, in the last 18 months or so, there was a job report by the National Women's Law Center where they reported over 5 million women lost their jobs. And so we can talk about pay equity, and that is a critical reality. But what about getting women back to work and getting women back to work in the conditions that actually work for us? We are asked to come into these workplaces that were designed for men and by men, and either by rational choice or circumstance, 5 million women have left the workforce.
Yeah, we talk about it all, a lot about that on this broadcast, about the fact that, in the home, there's children to care for, there's elderly parents at different stages in your life. There are different things, pregnancy, breastfeeding, there's so many things. And you make the point very clearly, is that the workforce system was not designed for women by women, right? So now that's where the work begins, certainly for the working age women. I want to talk also about the aspect, because there's so many aspects to look at on this day. When we look at just even girls and women's safety, we know that women and Black women, girls, Black girls are at risk of violence, domestic violence. Those are issues that are very much still present with us.
They are very much still present with us, the violence in women and girls. And so how are we protecting? What are the legislation, what's required of organizations, what's required of government and policy to really protect women and girls. Women have and continue to strengthen our communities, our families, and we have to do everything that we can to empower, to support, to love, and protect them, not just today, but every day. Yeah. And there really does require a societal change to completely really readdress this relationship between society and women and the valuation of women and girls. I mean, it has to absolutely change in order for something much greater in a life that we all want and desire.
And deserve, right? That's that other part of it. Look,
yeah, absolutely.
It's one thing how we see ourselves, but we know that oftentimes how we see ourselves is because of the mirror put in front of us, how society sees
that's
ourselves.
Right.
And so, so that's the challenge. Both things need to sort of change systematically. Okay, I want to end with this. I want you to give us a little bit of each. What breaks your heart the most that you see right now in terms of women's equality, and what is the thing that gives you hope?
The thing that breaks my heart the most is the assumptions, the inability to engage women around what they actually need and just assuming that what is provided is enough. And what gives me hope is that we are continuing to engage in the conversation, and women are continuing to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard to say, and people perhaps are continuing to listen, even when it's hard to hear.
I agree. Hard work. We're asked to do hard things. We're doing it. Bit of a paradigm shift happening. I can feel it. I know you can as well. Dr. Kerry Mitchell-Brown, equity strategist and cultural architect. What a delight to be with you today. Happy National Equality Day.
Same to you. Have an amazing day.
I sure will. You as well. We'll be right back. Thank you, Kerry.